Hi, and welcome everyone to the podcast Coffee with the Kensington. My name is Brenda Moynihan, and I am the Director of Marketing and Outreach at the Kensington Assisted Living Residence and your host today. During the podcast, we discuss all things related to seniors, their caregivers, and families. Today's topic is Sex Over 60, Sex and Seniors. And my guests today are Joanne Parliament and Jennifer Colby. Joanne is a registered nurse and healthcare executive with extensive home care experience. She has expertise in many areas, including federal and state regulations, operations management, education, and business development. And my second guest, Jennifer Colby, is a psychotherapist who specializes in aging issues and family dynamics surrounding transitions for older adults and their children. She is also a certified geriatric care manager and licensed social worker evaluator for New York Presbyterian Westchester Division Hospital. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's talk about sex, baby, just like Salt and Pepper, this song. So let's talk about a little serious of what happens as you get older. Your body changes, and what are those changes that would affect our sex lives?
Okay, so for men, it's called climacteric, which is equivalent to the female version of menopause. And men have decreased testosterone, which can start in their 40s. That leads to decreased muscle tone, bone density, decreased sex drive, a need for more stimulation or enhancement to achieve an erection or maintain an erection. They may have shorter orgasms, decrease in their semen. And some of that leads to emotional and behavioral issues as well. People could be depressed. They could be anxious about this. They can have feelings of sadness, detachment. And that's both for male and female. For the female, menopause, you have a decreased estrogen level. Again, can start in your 40s. That leads to decreased libido, vaginal dryness. Women see skin changes like decreased elasticity, muscle tone, and subcutaneous fat. They also notice body changes. Many women gain weight, especially in the middle part of their body. Their breasts aren't as perky as they used to be. They might see hair on their face, and it's more important to have a bone density because there may be demineralization of their bones at that part in their life.
So now all the things that you're talking about, what if, changes are happening, people are not actually realizing it's because they're getting older? What do you think about them talking to their geriatrician or their primary care doctor about these sexual matters?
So it's really important to involve your doctor and not to be self-conscious about that conversation. And we see that many of the older population do not want to bring that up with the doctor. But many of the changes that are occurring in their body also could be related to medical conditions or side effects of medications. So it's really important to talk to your physician so that they could possibly work you up for other things to ensure that that is just the natural body changes. Also, it's important to talk to your doctor about your sexual habits because many people who are older believe that, well, I can't get pregnant anymore, so I don't need to use any protection. But we do see an increase in sexually transmitted diseases within the last 10 years in the older population.
It's funny that you say that because I read somewhere that the older adult population is the biggest population with STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, higher than people in their 20s, in their teens. So exactly what you said, Joanne, that I think it's important for listeners to understand. Just because you can't get pregnant doesn't mean you cannot get a disease, a sexually transmitted disease. That's important. Now, as we're talking about, folks going to their doctors and trying to talk openly about their changes in their body and things like that, can they also, or what are some things that men and women can do to improve their libido and sexual performance?
So some of the things that people can do is, we know that intercourse is not the only way for pleasure. So, think of other ways, spending time together, increasing foreplay, since both for men and women, it takes longer to become aroused. With women, because of the vaginal dryness, use some type of lubricant that you can get over the counter, not Vaseline, because that could cause issues. It has to be water soluble. Many women also have stress incontinence, so it's important to maintain your hygiene before. I know we want to be spontaneous, but if you know things are occurring, maintain your hygiene, empty your bladder. There's a lot of fluids going on, so if a little urine leaks out, it's not the end of the world. People have Foley catheters, which are tubes in their bladder. You could have sex with those. You could just put it to the side, tape it to the side. These are things that you need to speak to your doctor about. Set the mood. Be spontaneous. Alcohol, even though we think it decreases our inhibitions, it may decrease our ability to become aroused. It may delay that. So don't assume that alcohol can be the help for that, because it may not be.
Right.
There are many things that you could do, and you need to be open and honest with your partner and have an open conversation. And if it's a new partner, you need to be comfortable talking about condoms and things like that, so that you can protect the both of you.
Right. So now let's talk a little bit about, if somebody has children and maybe they are either divorced, widow, widower, how do they start that conversation and tell their kids about their new partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, something like that?
You want to answer that question?
I'd love to. Thank you. So, sex is enjoyable. It's a wonderful activity that can bring people closer together. And yes, we have all the physical aspects of it, but you also have all the emotional aspects as well. And so it's very important for an older adult to feel like they can openly and freely engage in a sexual relationship that does not have judgment from either peers or family members. And I've worked with many older adults that have adult children. Normally the children are probably 50. And there's a little bit of shame associated with wanting to admit that they have or developing feelings for someone else. And my suggestion is to always have a frank conversation, because even kids that are little don't like to think of their parents as being sexual beings. They're their parents. They only had sex once when they were conceived. And that mindset continues into adulthood, even when the children themselves enjoy sexual relationships. So having an open and frank conversation with your children is the best way to go about introducing the topic, and showing that the older adult deserves the dignity and the respect of being able to engage in a sexual relationship. Now, I do want to caveat that if there is something like a cognitive impairment or some sort of issue going on, the children may be a little bit on guard, because obviously you want to protect against financial abuse or something of that nature. So, if there is a cognitive component, there needs to be some discussion around that as well. But if you have a cognitively intact adult, just being open and honest with the kids is the best way to go about it. I liken it to somebody that chooses to come out with their sexuality, that's the same sort of vein of the conversation, that it's natural, it's fine, I'm being honest, and this is who I am, and I don't need your judgment.
Right, good. And, sometimes in the media, they portray older adults as non-sexual beings, but that's not accurate, right? I mean, talk a little bit about the idea that some people think it's abnormal to have sexual desires as you get older?
Well, sexual desire is something that is built into us by evolution. I mean, that's how the species populates. And age is just a number. You know, your mentality is so important to your sexual life. In fact, you know, I personally believe that sex is as much in the mind as it is in the body. And our country in particular tends to be a little bit more restrictive and more prudish when it comes to sexuality. It's deemed as something that needs to be kept secret. Just thinking about the story with Adam and Eve, you know, they covered their nakedness when they bit from the tree of life. And, you know, that implies an element of shame about it. And there's nothing shameful about a sexual relationship with an older adult. So I encourage people to not impose self-judgment, to not feel like there's something wrong with them or they're abnormal if they have sexual desire, that it's built into our biology and it's a natural phenomenon and we need to embrace it.
Okay. And ladies, as we wrap up, I think, what's the one thing that you'd like to have our listeners understand about, you know, sex as you're getting older? What's the one tip that you would impart to our listeners?
My takeaway is that sex needs to be destigmatized. Going to Joanne's point, I actually interviewed several physicians that work with older adults, and they told me they were uncomfortable bringing up the topic with sexuality unless they were directly asked by the patient. So in other words, if you had a patient that was going in for a routine checkup, you know, asking about sexual health was not part of that. They'd ask you about your cholesterol, they'd ask you about your exercise, they would not ask you about your sexuality. And it was due to the stigma, particularly if you have a younger doctor that's a different gender than the older adult. So that's my biggest takeaway from this, is that sex is natural and it shouldn't be hidden away, and it's absolutely fine to have a frank and open discussion about it.
Great, great. Joanne?
My takeaway is that sex is part of companionship. It's part of a natural life, and many elderly adults, especially widow and widowers, feel alienated, lonely. It's a natural part of life, and to embrace the changes that are going on in your life. Be aware of your physical limitations. If you have COPD or emphysema, make sure you use your oxygen before. If you have limitations related to range of motion, there are multiple positions that you can use. Pace yourself, enjoy being with each other, deal with the body changes, find other ways. Like I talked about the lubricants, that there are mechanical devices they can use. Hugging, kissing, enhance the atmosphere. Just enjoy being with each other, and don't focus on the whole stigma of intercourse, but just companionship, and enjoy being with each other. And, you know, it'll improve their mentality, and I truly believe that it'll improve them physically as well.
Great. Thank you. So listeners, you heard it here, Coffee with the Kensington. And remember, have an open discussion with someone that you trust, your doctor, perhaps clergy, perhaps your best friend. And if it feels good, do it. So I want to thank my two guests, Joanne Parliament and Jennifer Colby. And if you'd like to reach out to either of these ladies, please feel free to contact Joanne at joparliament@aol.com. That's JOPARLIAMENT@AOL.com, or Jennifer Colby at jcolbylcswccm@gmail.com. That's JCOLBYLCSWCCM@gmail.com. And folks, as always, if you'd like to contact us at the Kensington for more information, please feel free to go to our website at www.thekensingtonwhiteplains.com, or give us a call at 914-390-0080. Have a great day. Take care.